Imagine yourself lying back, your body growing heavier with each passing breath, your eyelids softening as the rhythm of your breathing carries you gently into a slower pace. And in this calm state, we begin a journey together, not a hurried march, but a drifting exploration, where words become like waves upon a quiet shore, where every phrase stretches and lingers, not to demand attention, but to dissolve tension. And in that dissolving, you find yourself floating, guided into the stories of civilizations that have slipped through the fingers of time, leaving behind only fragments, whispers, and mysteries that soothe more than they disturb, that calm more than they confuse, because in the silence of the forgotten past, we often find a strange peace, as if the weight of all that has come before was already carried for us, so we may only listen. These are not tales to keep you awake with excitement, but stories woven like soft cloth around the edges of your awareness, threading history and imagination in a slow rhythm. And as you listen, you might allow your own thoughts to become slower, softer, less insistent, blending with the flow of the words until they are no longer questions demanding answers, but drifting clouds passing over an ancient sky. And as you sink further into this state, let me gently remind you that if you wish to stay close to these journeys, if you wish to return again and again to these calm explorations of time and memory, you can softly press like, leave a comment sharing the thoughts that drift through you. Subscribe so you can walk with us into many more forgotten worlds, and even share this space with others who may also long for a quiet place to rest. Think of it not as an instruction, but as an invitation, a whisper, something you may follow when you feel ready. Just as civilizations themselves left invitations in stone and sand for us to find. And so, with this quiet awareness, we begin with perhaps the most famous of all the lost civilizations, one that is less a matter of archaeology and more a matter of dream, yet has haunted imaginations for millennia, a place called Atlantis. The name alone carries a sound that seems to echo, deep and resonant, like a bell rung beneath the ocean, the syllables drawn out slowly. Atlantis, each beat carrying with it the suggestion of waves, of depth, of mystery, and of something that is always just out of reach, glimpsed in the corner of thought, never held firmly but never entirely absent. Plato, the philosopher who lived centuries before Christ, was the one who gave us the tale, describing a mighty island nation beyond the Pillars of Hercules, what we now call the Strait of Gibraltar, a kingdom rich and powerful, filled with wonders and knowledge, until pride and corruption led to its downfall, swallowed by the sea in a single day and night of misfortune. It is a story told and retold across centuries, questioned by scholars, embellished by storytellers, embraced by dreamers, and in every telling it changes slightly, like a shoreline reshaped by each tide, but always the essence remains. A civilization advanced, magnificent, and lost beneath the waves. And as you imagine it now, allow yourself to drift with that image, not rushing to decide whether it is real or myth, but simply letting the possibility itself be the companion of your mind. A gentle what if that soothes more than it stirs, because the beauty of Atlantis lies less in proof and more in the dream of it, the calm thought that somewhere hidden beneath quiet seas, there may still lie marble columns, silent statues, streets paved with stone, all embraced by corals and drifting fish, the architecture of men and the artistry of nature woven together in silence. And when you think of Atlantis this way, it becomes not a loud question demanding an answer, but a soft lullaby sung by history, reminding us that not everything needs to be known completely. Some things are best left to mystery, for mystery itself has a calming weight, a deep, slow presence like the sound of waves that never stops, that repeats endlessly, and in that repetition the body and mind can rest. Imagine walking along those imagined Atlantean streets, the air heavy with salt and mist, the sky fading into twilight, and each step echoing softly between colonnades worn by centuries of water, your hands brushing walls of stone smoothed by the sea. And there is no hurry here, no need for resolution, only the endless rhythm of water moving in and out, reminding you of breath, reminding you of stillness, reminding you of the gentle truth that all civilizations rise and all civilizations fade. And in that cycle, there is peace. Perhaps Atlantis never existed in the way Plato described. Perhaps it was only a metaphor. Perhaps it was a warning about hubris and pride. But even then, the story lives on because it speaks to something universal in us. The longing for places we can never return to. The nostalgia for worlds we never knew. The comfort of imagining that the earth itself holds secrets far greater than our own lifetimes. And in that longing, there is also rest. Because when the mind turns towards such vastness, it loosens its grip on the small worries of the day, on the troubles that kept you restless. And instead, it drifts outward into oceans that have no end, into myths that have no borders until even your own thoughts seem to sink like anchors into the deep. So tonight, let Atlantis be less a question and more a lullaby, less a puzzle and more a gentle tide, carrying you deeper into calmness, deeper into stillness, deeper into the timeless truth that whether it was real or only imagined, it belongs to us now as a place to rest, to close the eyes, and wander slowly through ancient waters, where nothing is urgent and everything is softened by the embrace of time. And as you drift here, we will in time move to other lost civilizations, each with their own quiet presence, but for now, simply let Atlantis be enough. Let it be the first step into the silence of history, and the opening doorway into the sleep that waits patiently for you. Block 2, the silent continents of Lemuria and Mu. As we drift further into the gentle current of forgotten worlds, we move away from the echo of Atlantis and let ourselves be carried across the wider oceans, where legends of other lands sleep beneath the waves, their outlines blurred like half-remembered dreams, their names spoken softly as if they were lullabies of the earth itself. Among these names, two rise and fall like the swell of distant seas, Lemuria and Mu. Vast continents imagined, dreamed, perhaps invented, yet for more than a century they have lived in the twilight between science and myth, between speculation and story, offering us not proof, but presence. And presence is often all we need to rest. Lemuria was born not out of a myth-maker's tale, but out of science itself, or at least the science of the 19th century, when naturalists studied the distribution of lemurs, those soft-eyed creatures of Madagascar and India, and puzzled over how such delicate beings could exist so far apart, separated by an ocean. To solve this mystery, some proposed a lost land bridge, a continent stretching across the Indian Ocean, connecting Africa, India, and the islands in between, a great landmass that once supported forests and rivers, life and culture, until it sank beneath the sea. It was a hypothesis, nothing more, but the name Lemuria, given in honor of the lemurs, carried a strange music to it, and like all words with music, it slipped from the pages of science into the currents of imagination, where it grew not smaller but larger, no longer a dry explanation, but a vast continent of mystery, a stage for stories yet untold. Imagine it now, a land rising where the Indian Ocean spreads today, not barren or dry but lush, filled with green valleys, high plateaus, perhaps temples and settlements that watch the sun move across skies just as we do. The waves around us tonight soften the thought, as if this continent still lingers, hidden below, covered by layers of silence, waiting for the gentle gaze of those who dream. And even if we never find its stones, The calmness of the idea itself is enough. That the world once held more than it does now. That we are surrounded not only by the lands we know, but also by the memory of lands that may have been. And then there is Mu, a name even simpler, shorter, like a breath, Mu. And with it comes an entire Pacific stretched with possibilities. In the late 19th century, writers began to speak of Mu as a vast continent that once bridged the islands of Polynesia, a civilization advanced and radiant, erased by the sea but leaving behind faint traces in the ruins scattered across the Pacific. It was James Churchward, an English writer, who gave Mu its greatest voice in the early 20th century, describing in long and elaborate books how tablets in India revealed to him the story of this vanished empire, a motherland of humanity itself, home to millions, whose wisdom seeded Egypt, Mesopotamia, and the Americas, until earthquakes and floods took it beneath the waters. Scholars dismiss it, archaeologists roll their eyes, yet still the story of Mu drifts on, not in lecture halls but in quiet imaginations, where we prefer possibilities to proofs, where the idea of an ancient homeland uniting scattered islands feels like a lullaby sung across waves. And as you listen now, you can almost hear it too. A gentle chorus of waves breaking on forgotten shores, palm trees swaying in winds no longer felt, birds singing in forests that may never have existed. And yet in the rhythm of those sounds, your body sinks deeper into calm. To picture Mu is to picture silence itself stretched across the Pacific. Stone cities shimmering in the sun, carved with patterns we can no longer decipher. Priests and singers chanting to stars above waters so wide they seemed eternal. Children laughing in villages near lagoons. Fishermen casting nets where now only waves roll. And then, one night or one century, the ground shook, the waters rose, and Mu was gone. Not slowly, not gradually, but like Atlantis, lost in an instant, remembered only in fragments and later reborn in imagination. And so Lemuria and Mu, whether real or only dreamed, are less about discovery and more about comfort. For what do these myths give us, if not the gentle thought that the world is larger than what maps show, that history is deeper than what books record, that beneath the steady rhythm of everyday life, there are hidden layers of wonder that may never be solved, but can always be felt. To lie back and drift on these thoughts is to let go of the need for certainty, to replace the sharp light of proof with the soft glow of possibility. And in that glow, the heart slows, the breath evens, the body relaxes. If you were to stand on the shore of Madagascar at dusk, watching the Indian Ocean darken into violet, or on a lonely island in Polynesia as the stars multiplied across the sky, you might sense that same presence, the weight of invisible continents lying beneath, the silence of cultures unknown, the comfort of mysteries that no storm can erase. The world is not smaller when filled with mystery. It is larger, more generous, more open to rest. And so tonight, as you listen, let Lemuria and Mu be not questions to solve, but oceans to rest upon. Let them stretch beneath you like vast hammocks of water and silence, carrying you further away from noise, deeper into calm, where the names themselves, Lemuria, Mu, become like mantras repeated slowly, lengthening each breath, smoothing each thought, until the only thing left is the rhythm of the sea and the rhythm of your heart, moving together as one. Block 3, the colossal whispers of the Olmecs, beyond the gentle oceans where Lemuria and Mu once floated in silence. Our slow drifting carries us now toward the mainland of the Americas, where forests stretch endlessly, rivers curl like ribbons of silver beneath the moon, and time itself moves in slower currents, hidden beneath canopies of green. And here, long before the pyramids of the Aztecs or the temples of the Maya, another people lived, worked, created and vanished, leaving behind only shadows of their presence carved in stone. They are known to us as the Olmecs, though what they called themselves is lost to memory, their language unheard, their voices carried away like smoke on the wind, leaving only the echo of colossal heads, silent, unmoving, mysterious, resting in the earth as if they were guardians of forgotten dreams. Imagine yourself walking slowly through a forest path, the ground soft with leaves, the air heavy with mist, until through the trees you glimpse the rounded shape of stone rising from the earth. Massive, larger than life, a head carved from a single block of basalt, eyes calm, lips pressed in quiet strength, a face so human and yet so timeless that it seems to breathe without moving. These colossal heads are the whispers of the Olmecs, their most famous gift to the ages, each weighing tons, each shaped with care by hands long gone, and no one can say exactly why they were made or whom they represent. Are they kings, rulers, heroes, or perhaps ancestors whose memory was preserved in stone? The questions drift, but tonight we do not need answers, only the calm presence of these stones, sitting silently in the earth, watching the centuries pass as forests rise and fall, as civilizations come and go. The Olmecs lived more than 3,000 years ago, in the lowlands of what is now Mexico, building cities like San Lorenzo and La Venta, places where trade, ritual, and daily life blended together in ways we can only imagine. They were among the first in the Americas to shape jade into delicate figures, to carve altars that look like portals into other worlds, to develop symbols that may have been writing, though we cannot yet read them. To think of them is to think of beginnings, of seeds planted in soil that later blossomed into Maya calendars and Aztec temples. But the Olmecs themselves remain like a shadow at dawn, their features blurred, their voices soft, their lives half forgotten yet always present. Picture now the slow work of their days. A man shaping stone with tools of wood and sand, patiently, endlessly, until the stone itself yields, until the curve of a cheek or the slope of a brow emerges. A woman weaving fibers into cloth, threads crossing over each other like the crossing of rivers. Children playing near the water, their laughter drifting like birdsong. Priests watching the movement of stars, carving symbols into clay, marking the passage of time. All of this, all of them gone now. Yet in the rhythm of imagining them, your own breath slows, because to remember them is not to awaken but to sink deeper into stillness, deeper into the quiet truth that so much has been and so much has passed, and in that passing, life continues. Life. The colossal heads remain the most enduring image of the Olmecs, but even they are not loud monuments. They do not rise like pyramids or shout like inscriptions. They sit instead, still and heavy, their features serene, their presence quiet. They are less announcements and more meditations, less declarations and more whispers. To stand before one is to feel not excitement but calm, not urgency but weight, the kind of weight that anchors, that steadies, that reminds you of how small a single life is compared to the turning of centuries. And in that awareness, rest comes naturally. Some say the Olmecs worship jaguars, blending human and feline shapes in their art, carving figures with round eyes and wide mouths, creatures that seem to hover between worlds. Others point to their knowledge of astronomy, their orientation of ceremonial centers, their hints of ritual and myth. But what we know for certain is only fragments, and the rest is silence. And yet silence itself is enough, for it is the silence that allows us to drift, to imagine, to surrender to the soft rhythm of not knowing. As you breathe now, imagine yourself sitting before one of those colossal heads at dusk, the air cooling, the forest quieting, the last birds settling into their nests. and before you the massive stone face rests, unmoving, its eyes half closed, as if it too were sinking into sleep. You sit in its presence and you need not think, need not solve, need not understand. For the head is not a puzzle but a companion, reminding you that everything passes, everything rests, and everything returns to silence. The Olmecs themselves vanished more than 2,000 years ago, their cities abandoned, their rituals forgotten, their names erased. Yet the calm they left in stone still reaches us, still steadies us, still invites us to close our eyes and let go. And so, as this night drifts deeper, let the Olmecs be not a mystery to awaken you, but a lullaby to calm you. Let their colossal heads be pillows of stone upon which the centuries rest, heavy and unmovable. And as you imagine them, imagine also your own thoughts resting, unneeded, unmoving still. For in the presence of such ancient calm, there is nothing left to do but breathe, to sink, and to let sleep come gently, as it always does. Block 4, the timeless stones of Göbekli Tepe. Across oceans and forests, leaving behind the colossal calm of the Olmecs, we drift now toward the hills of ancient Anatolia, where the earth itself holds secrets that slept untouched for millennia. Beneath soft soil, beneath grass and dust, there lies a circle of stones older than the pyramids, older than the ziggurats, older even than the myths we tell of beginnings. This place is called Göbekli Tepe, the Belly Hill, a mound that seemed unremarkable until men with careful hands began to uncover it in the late 20th century, revealing to the world a temple that rewrote history, a gathering place of stones standing upright in rings, carved with animals and symbols, silent yet eloquent. The oldest temple known, a whisper from the very dawn of civilization. Imagine standing at the edge of that hill, the air still, the horizon stretched wide, and then stepping slowly into the circles of stone, tall pillars rising like guardians, their surfaces etched with lions, foxes, birds, serpents, wild boar, and creatures of earth and sky. There is no writing here, no story told in words, and yet the carvings speak in silence, reminding us that long before cities, long before kings, there were people who gathered together, who dreamed of the sacred, who marked their awe with stone. To walk among them is to walk not into history, but into prehistory, into a time when the line between myth and life was not yet drawn. Each pillar is tall, some reaching over 5 meters, weighing tons, yet shaped and placed with intention. They stand in circles, facing inward, as if in endless conversation, as if the stones themselves were the participants in a ritual we cannot see. And at the center, larger stones rise shaped like giant T's, broad shoulders holding the weight of meaning we can no longer decipher. These stones do not shout, they hum. They do not command, they invite. Their presence is slow, steady like the heartbeat of the earth. And as you imagine them now, you may feel your own heartbeat sinking, steadying, slowing, finding rhythm in their silence. Archaeologists debate the purpose of Göbekli Tepe. Was it a temple to gods we no longer know? A gathering place for feasts and rituals? A monument to ancestors or spirits? Or perhaps a place where early people looked at the stars, carving their sky into stone? The truth may be lost, or perhaps it was never singular, but what matters now is not the answer, but the awareness that humans, over 11,000 years ago, gathered here, built here, carved here, not because they needed to survive, but because they needed to remember, to honor, to reach for something beyond themselves. Imagine them in the cool night air, torches flickering, shadows moving along the stones, voices chanting, drums beating in slow rhythm, echoing into the hills, until the sound blended with wind and night creatures, creating a music no one can reproduce. Imagine the feel of the stone under their hands, the patience of carving, the care of placement, the weight of belief carried in every motion. These were not hurried people. They had time, they had silence, they had reverence, and in that reverence we find calm even now. What is most mysterious of all is that Göbekli Tepe was not abandoned by chance, but buried deliberately, covered with soil and stone, hidden from sight, preserved by those who built it, as if they wished it to rest, to sleep beneath the earth until the time came for it to be found again. And so it waited, for thousands of years, a temple asleep, dreaming beneath the soil, while empires rose and fell above it, while generations passed, unaware of the silence beneath their feet. To think of this is to think of time itself as a circle, always turning, always returning, and in that turning we find rest. As you breathe now, imagine yourself lying within that circle of stones, the ground cool beneath you, the pillars rising above, the stars turning slowly overhead. The carvings around you blur into shadows, the air is still, and you feel not small but connected, not lost but sheltered. The stones do not move, yet they hold you. They embrace you. They steady you. And with each breath, you sink deeper, as if you too were part of the earth, part of the circle, part of the endless silence that stretches across millennia. Göbekli Tepe is not a story of kings or empires, not a tale of conquest or war. It is a reminder of beginnings, of humanity itself pausing, gathering, and building something not for survival, but for meaning. It is the whisper that at the dawn of time, we were already dreamers, already reaching beyond ourselves, already weaving silence into stone. And tonight, as you drift further into calm, let those stones stand also in your mind, not as puzzles but as companions, reminding you that the deepest truths are often wordless, and that silence itself is sacred. Block 5, the desert rose of the Nabateans. From the ancient stones of Göbekli Tepe, where silence was carved into pillars older than memory, we drift now across dry winds, carried by the breath of the desert, where sand stretches endlessly, glowing gold in the day and silver beneath the moon. The desert does not rush. It expands, it lingers, it repeats itself with every dune, every horizon, every slow ripple of wind. And in this endless rhythm, the mind itself begins to slow, to surrender, to soften. It is here, within mountains of rose and cliffs of fire-colored stone, that one of the most mysterious and graceful civilizations left its mark. The Nabateans, whose mastery was not in conquering with armies, but in blending human life into the harsh desert, coaxing silence into survival, carving eternity into rock. And the jewel of their world, the place where their presence still whispers to us, is Petra, the Rose City, carved directly into the cliffs, a wonder both fragile and eternal. Imagine yourself beginning at the Seek, the narrow passage that leads into Petra, a canyon cut by water and time, twisting and turning like a soft ribbon between towering walls. The path is shaded, the air cool despite the desert heat outside, and the walls rise higher with every step, narrowing above your head until they seem to touch the sky. The sound of your footsteps is muted, the sand absorbing noise, and the canyon itself feels like a slow inhalation, as if the earth were breathing you inward. Then, after this long and gentle walk, the passage widens suddenly, and the treasury reveals itself, Al-Khazne, a facade carved directly into the rose cliffs, majestic, luminous, breathtaking, and yet utterly silent. The moment feels like stepping into a dream, one in which stone itself becomes architecture, where mountains are no longer barriers but canvases, and where silence is more eloquent than any voice. The Nabateans built Petra not only as a city but as a sanctuary, a place where the desert itself could be persuaded to sustain life. They mastered water, which in the desert is everything, carving channels that guided rainfall into reservoirs, digging cisterns that stored life in stone. While other peoples avoided the desert, the Nabateans embraced it, learning its rhythms, taming its silence without destroying it. This knowledge made them wealthy, for trade routes crossed the Arabian sands, bringing incense, spices, and precious goods to Petra. And in return, Petra grew rich, not with noise but with quiet abundance, a place both hidden and central, both secret and celebrated. Picture the city in its height. Camels kneeling at market squares, their bells jingling softly, merchants arranging goods from India and Arabia, baskets of frankincense, spices glowing red and gold, fabrics dyed with rare colors, jars filled with oils, beads shimmering like stars in the sun. People moved through streets carved into cliffs, their voices blending with the call of birds, the whisper of wind, the sound of water trickling from carefully channeled sources. Priests and pilgrims climbed stairs carved into the rocks, their eyes lifted toward tombs and temples, while children laughed and ran in alleys shaded by cliffs. And above it all, the mountains embraced the city, not as walls of confinement, but as guardians, steady and eternal. The Nabateans did not leave long inscriptions. Their language is faint in history, their records scattered. Instead, they left architecture that speaks without words. The treasury with its columns and pediments, the monastery high above with its immense facade, the royal tombs glowing red at sunset, the amphitheater cut directly from rock where voices once echoed but now fall into silence. These are not ruins that collapse. They are carvings that remain, as if the mountain itself became part of their dream. To walk among them is not to feel loss, but to feel presence, the steady presence of stone, the still presence of time itself. At night, Petra becomes even more a dream. The cliffs fade into darkness. The stars above burn clear in desert skies, and in the valley below, hundreds of candles glow in rows, their flames swaying in silence, lighting the treasury with golden softness. Visitors sit on rugs, their bodies stilled, while music floats from flutes and voices. In this setting, time itself seems to hold its breath, and the city is no longer an archaeological site, but a living memory. A dream returned. And as you imagine this scene now, with the cool desert air brushing your skin and the faint scent of sand and stone filling your breath, you feel the weight of the centuries dissolve into calm, the vastness of time carrying you, not frightening you, but steadying you, like the cliffs themselves. The Nabatean story is also one of impermanence. Their wealth attracted the attention of empires, and over time Petra's power waned, trade routes shifted, and eventually the city was abandoned, left to sand and wind. For centuries it slept, hidden from the outside world, its silence broken only by shepherds and wanderers, until in the 19th century it was revealed again to the west, a forgotten rose blooming once more. Yet even in its rediscovery, Petra does not shout. It does not demand attention the way pyramids or palaces do. Instead, it invites, it waits, it whispers. Its beauty is not in its noise, but in its stillness, not in its size, but in its blending, not in its power, but in its peace. As you breathe now, imagine sitting cross-legged before the treasury as night deepens. The air cools, the cliffs loom around you like ancient arms, and the candles flicker in endless rhythm. Each flame bends slightly in the breeze, each glow softens the stone, and you begin to feel as if you too are carved into this place, steady, unhurried, timeless. Your breath slows with the candles, your thoughts sink into silence with the cliffs, your body rests with the stone itself. The Nabateans may have vanished, but Petra remains as a companion for anyone who pauses long enough to listen. And in its silence we find not emptiness but fullness, not absence but presence, not loss but rest. Petra has been called the desert rose, and that is what it feels like now. A flower blooming in stone, fragile yet eternal, delicate yet unmovable. Its petals made not of silk, but of cliffs, its fragrance not of air, but of silence. It is a rose that blooms not once, but always, a rose that whispers across centuries, a rose that does not fade. To rest in Petra is to rest within that rose, to feel yourself unfold slowly, gently, until you too are part of its silence. And as you drift deeper into calm tonight, let Petra bloom within you, not as a memory of ruins, but as a garden of stillness, where every stone is a petal, every shadow a fragrance, every breath a reminder that time itself, like the desert, moves slowly, endlessly, and peacefully. And Block 6, the silent rivers of the Indus Valley. From the cliffs of Petra, where silence was carved into rose-colored stone, we drift now eastward, across deserts and mountains, following the long breath of the earth, until we reach a land shaped not by sand, but by rivers. Two great rivers whose waters once nourished one of the earliest civilizations in human history. Here, thousands of years ago, long before Rome or Greece, long before the pyramids were completed, people built cities with order and care, with streets aligned, with houses of brick, with wells and drains, with markets and baths. And yet, though their civilization was vast and advanced, their voices remained silent, their script unread, their gods unnamed. This is the Indus Valley civilization, a world of mystery, where the stones speak only in whispers, and the rivers carry secrets that no storm has revealed. Imagine the slow current of the Indus River at dusk, its surface glowing with the reflection of fading sunlight, the air heavy with warmth, the scent of earth rising after the day's heat. Along its banks, 4,000 years ago, stood cities like Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro, places planned with precision, their streets forming grids, their homes built with uniform bricks, their drains carrying water away in quiet order. There were no grand monuments like pyramids, no palaces towering above the people, no inscriptions praising kings. Instead, what we find is balance, harmony, simplicity, a civilization that valued order, cleanliness, and the rhythm of daily life. And in that rhythm, as you imagine it now, you too can find rest. For order is calming and simplicity is soothing, and the silence of the Indus is not emptiness but peace. Picture the Great Bath of Mohenjo-Daro, a rectangular pool built carefully with baked bricks, lined with steps leading down into the water. At dawn, perhaps, men and women entered slowly, the cool water embracing them, their reflections broken by ripples, their minds calmed by ritual. We do not know what gods they worshipped, what prayers they whispered, but the bath itself suggests cleansing, renewal, silence. Imagine the sound of water lapping softly against brick, the faint splash of movement, the slow rhythm of breath in and out. This was not noise, but stillness, and the stillness remains even now. The people of the Indus Valley were skilled in craft and trade. They carved seals of stone, tiny squares engraved with animals, unicorns, elephants, bulls, and symbols that may have been writing, but no one today can read them. These symbols stare back at us across 4,000 years, mute yet present, reminding us that not all language is meant to be solved, that some words are meant to remain as mysteries, soothing in their unreadability. To hold one of these seals in your mind is to hold a puzzle that does not need an answer, only appreciation, a reminder that silence can be more restful than meaning. Their cities show no signs of war, no fortresses built for battle, no monuments to conquerors. Instead, they show wells in almost every house, drains that carried waste away, streets wide and straight, storage rooms for grain. A civilization built not on noise but on order, not on conquest but on care. And as you breathe now, slowly, evenly, you may feel that same care surrounding you, a sense of being tended to, of being sheltered by the rhythm of bricks and streets, of water and grain, of a society that valued balance. And yet, despite its greatness, the Indus Valley civilization faded. Perhaps climate shifted, rivers dried, floods came, or trade routes changed. We do not know, and perhaps we never will. What remains is not a story of defeat, but a story of rest. A civilization that lived, thrived, and then quietly dissolved back into the earth, leaving behind only bricks, baths, seals, and silence. And in that silence, we too find calm. For the lesson of the Indus is that even greatness passes gently, without thunder, without cry, dissolving like a river into the sea. As you rest tonight, imagine walking through the streets of Mohenjo-Daro at twilight, the air cooling, the houses quiet, the bricks warm from the day's sun. The streets stretch straight before you, the wells are still, the drains empty, the silence deep. You feel not lonely but at peace, for the city is not empty but eternal, its quiet presence still alive. The Indus River flows nearby, carrying its waters slowly, endlessly, and you feel yourself flowing too, your breath joining the river, your body joining the earth, your mind joining the silence. And in that union, sleep comes naturally, gently, like water over stone, like history over centuries, like silence over thought. Block 7, the quiet shadows of the Etruscans. From the ordered streets of the Indus Valley, where water carried silence through wells and baths, we drift slowly westward, across mountains and seas, until we reach the soft hills of central Italy, where the land rolls gently under the golden sun, where vineyards climb in neat rows and olive trees stand like ancient sentinels, their leaves shimmering silver in the breeze. Today, these hills belong to Tuscany, known for beauty and wine. But long before Rome raised its walls, long before the Latin tongue was carved into stone, another people lived here, thrived here, celebrated here. They are known to us as the Etruscans, though what they called themselves remains uncertain, their origins debated, their language strange, their legacy profound yet quiet, absorbed into Rome yet never erased completely. They are a civilization wrapped in shadow, one that whispers rather than declares, one that shaped the foundations of Europe yet remains like a dream half remembered at dawn. Imagine yourself walking across the Tuscan countryside as evening falls, the horizon soft with orange light, the air thick with the scent of vines and freshly turned soil. Beneath your feet lies not just earth but history, for beneath these hills the Etruscans built their cities, raised their temples and dug their tombs. These tombs, when uncovered, reveal walls painted with color still vibrant after more than 2,000 years. Scenes of banquets, of music, of dancers in motion, of games and processions. Death to the Etruscans was not a dark silence, but a continuation of life's celebration. To step into their tombs, even in imagination, is to step into a place of calm joy, where death is softened, where eternity is painted not in gloom but in feast. The silence here is not heavy but festive, not frightening but reassuring, like a quiet room filled with laughter remembered, where the walls themselves hold memory. The Etruscans were artisans of remarkable skill. Their bronze mirrors reflect delicate images of goddesses. Their gold jewelry glitters with fine detail, Their pottery flows with painted lines. Their sarcophagi rest with serene faces carved in stone. Many sarcophagi show husband and wife reclining together, smiling gently, their stone hands entwined, their expressions calm, as if to say that love outlasts time, that companionship continues even when life ends. Picture those figures now. Stone bodies resting, faces soft, eyes closed in half smiles. They do not mourn but reassure, reminding you that nothing truly disappears, that even in silence there is togetherness, and in that togetherness, peace. Their language adds to their mystery. Written in an alphabet related to Greek, carved on stone and painted on pottery, it survives in fragments. Inscriptions on tombs, dedications to gods, names of the dead. Yet most of it remains undeciphered. We can sound the letters, but the meaning escapes us, slipping through our grasp like mist. To see their inscriptions is to see voices that speak without being understood, songs that hum without words, prayers that linger without translation. And instead of frustration, this unknowing brings rest, for it reminds us that not everything must be explained. Some mysteries are best left intact, some words best left as whispers. And in that whisper, you may feel yourself relaxing, your own thoughts easing into silence, no longer needing answers, only presence. The Etruscans listened deeply to the world around them. They read the will of the gods in the flight of birds, in the crack of lightning, in the shape of a sacrificed animal's liver. To us, this may seem strange, but to them it was not superstition, but communion, a way of hearing the divine in patterns, of sensing meaning in the ordinary. It was a quiet practice, not of loud prophecy, but of attentive listening. Perhaps that is what their civilization teaches us most, that if we are still enough, calm enough, the world speaks to us too. Not in thunder, but in murmurs, not in commands, but in signs, not in chaos, but in rhythm. Rome itself inherited much from the Etruscans. Its first kings were of Etruscan origin. Its arches and aqueducts borrowed their knowledge. Its rituals of state carried echoes of Etruscan rites. Even the purple robes of Roman magistrates, the curule chair, the lictors carrying fasces, all these symbols of Roman power began as Etruscan traditions. And yet, as Rome grew, the Etruscans themselves faded, absorbed into the empire, their language silenced, their independence gone. They became shadows within Rome, shaping it even as they disappeared into it. But shadows are not nothing. They linger. They shape the light. They remind us that even what seems lost continues quietly, invisibly, gently influencing what follows. As you breathe slowly now, imagine yourself descending into an Etruscan tomb cut into the hillside. The air grows cooler, the earth muffles sound, the chamber opens before you. On the walls are painted dancers, their arms raised in eternal movement, musicians playing lyres and flutes, their melodies imagined but unheard, banquets with figures reclining, food and wine flowing in endless abundance. The silence is deep, but the paintings are alive, as if the moment of joy they captured never ended, as if even death could not erase celebration. You sit quietly within this space, and you feel not fear but comfort, not loss but continuity, not ending but a gentle unfolding into something more. The stone around you steadies you, the painted figures accompany you, the silence itself embraces you. In this tomb, in this land, the Etruscans are not gone. They are present not as noise but as shadow, not as command but as memory, not as power but as peace. And as you close your eyes tonight, reclining as they once did, you too are part of their quiet banquet, part of their endless rest, part of their serene smile that lingers across centuries. Block 8, the earth and silence of Cahokia. From the painted tombs of the Etruscans, where shadows still whisper beneath Tuscan hills, we drift now across the wide Atlantic, carried slowly on winds that stretch endlessly, until we arrive at the heart of a continent where rivers meet and Earth itself was shaped into monuments. Here, long before European ships touched these shores, long before modern cities rose with steel and glass, there stood a city of mounds, a city of earthworks, a city vast and ordered, filled with tens of thousands of people, a place of ritual and trade, of ceremony and silence. This was Cahokia, the largest city of pre-Columbian North America north of Mexico. A place built not of stone, but of soil. A place now forgotten by many, yet still present in the quiet rise of its earthen mounds. Imagine standing at the confluence of the Mississippi, Missouri, and Illinois rivers. The air heavy with summer warmth, the horizon wide, the land fertile and green. Here, 1,000 years ago, people gathered in numbers that rivaled or exceeded London or Paris of the same time. They built great mounds of earth, layer upon layer, carried by baskets and hands, shaped into flat-topped pyramids, into ridges and circles, into platforms that lifted temples and houses toward the sky. The largest of these, Monk's Mound, still rises today, vast and gentle, its slopes covered in grass, its summit flat, once crowned by a great structure that looked out over the city. To climb it even now is to feel the weight of human hands that shaped the earth, slowly, patiently, tirelessly, until land itself became monument. Picture the city alive, wide plazas filled with gatherings, markets where shells from the Gulf, copper from the Great Lakes, and obsidian from the far west were traded, houses arranged in rows, smoke drifting gently from hearths, voices blending in the open air. Priests and leaders stood atop the mounds, their eyes turned toward the sun, the moon, the stars, guiding rituals that marked the cycles of time. One of the most mysterious structures was Woodhenge, a great circle of posts aligned with the solstices, where people gathered at dawn to watch the sun rise, to feel the turning of the year inscribed not in stone, but in light and shadow across the earth. Imagine standing there, the horizon glowing, the posts casting long shadows, the silence broken only by birds, and the sense that the universe itself was speaking softly through the pattern of light. And yet Cahokia, for all its size, left no writing, no records, no clear explanation of who they were, what gods they worshipped, or why the city eventually emptied. The mounds remain, the earth itself remembers, but the voices are gone. Some say disease, others say war, famine, climate change. The reasons drift like mist across the river, but none are certain. What remains certain is the silence, the calm presence of earth shaped by hands long gone. And in that silence there is peace, for it reminds us that not all greatness must endure in noise. Some greatness endures in quiet, in grass-covered mounds that rise and fall with the breath of the seasons. As you breathe slowly now, imagine walking across Cahokia at twilight. The sun has set, the fields glow faintly, fireflies rise from the grass, the air hums with crickets. You climb the gentle slope of Monk's Mound, each step steady, the ground firm beneath your feet. At the top, the land stretches endlessly. The rivers gleam like silver threads. The sky darkens into indigo. You sit quietly, the air cool on your skin, the earth solid beneath you, and you feel the presence of thousands who once lived here. Their lives gone, yet their silence still here. Steady, calm, eternal. Cahokia is not gone. It rests. It whispers through grass and soil, through rivers and sky. It is a reminder that civilizations need not build in stone to last, that memory is not measured in walls but in presence, that silence itself can be a monument greater than noise. And tonight, as you drift deeper into stillness, let Cahokia's mounds rise also in your mind, soft and steady, carrying you upward not toward noise but toward calm, toward silence, toward sleep. Block 9. The Floating Stones of Nan Madol. From the grassy mounds of Cahokia, where earth itself became monument and silence flowed like a river through forgotten plazas, we drift now far across the ocean, carried gently by waves that stretch into endless horizons, until we arrive at a place where stone seems to float upon the sea. This place is Nan Madol, built on the shores of Pohnpei in Micronesia, a city unlike any other, raised not on land but on a lagoon, a web of islets linked by canals, walls of massive basalt columns, stacked like logs, resting in quiet harmony with water and tide. Known as the Venice of the Pacific, it is a place of mystery, where the stones whisper of skill and effort, of vision and belief, yet the reasons for its building remain as fluid and uncertain as the ocean itself. Imagine approaching Nan Madol at dawn, the sky pale with first light, the water calm, the air heavy with salt and silence. You glide across the lagoon in a canoe, its wooden hull slicing gently through still water, until dark walls rise before you, walls built of stones weighing tons, stacked in patterns like bundles of reeds, as if the builders had persuaded the earth itself to mimic wood. These stones are not small, they are vast, and yet here they rest, balanced and arranged with such care that even centuries of tide and storm have not undone them. You step onto one of the islets, the air cool beneath the shadows of stone, and all around you are channels of water, flowing softly, connecting each piece of the city in a slow rhythm of tide. Nan Madol was not built for defense. Its walls do not rise to keep enemies out. Instead, it seems to have been a ceremonial center, a place of ritual, of kings and priests, of chants carried across water, of processions moving from islet to islet. Some say it was the seat of the Saudeleur dynasty, rulers whose power stretched across the island, centralizing authority, demanding tribute. Others believe it was a sacred place, where rituals of life and death unfolded, where spirits were honored, where silence itself became holy. Whatever its purpose, it was a city where human life and ocean mingled, where land and water did not separate but embraced. Picture the life of Nan Madol when it was alive. Canoes moving slowly along the canals, their paddles dipping in rhythm with chants. Priests lighting fires on stone platforms, their smoke curling into the humid air. Fish swimming in channels where people lived, their presence both food and symbol. Families moving across bridges of stone, voices softened by water. The city must have glowed at night, fires reflecting in the lagoon, stars above shimmering, the water carrying every sound gently like a lullaby. And now, centuries later, all that remains is the stone, the canals, the silence. The mystery of Nan Madol lies not only in its purpose but in its construction. How did people, without cranes or modern tools, move such massive stones across land and sea? Some legends say magic, others say spirits carried them, still others imagine techniques now forgotten, lost to time. And yet, whether by strength, ingenuity, or myth, the result remains: a city floating on water, a dream anchored in basalt, a silence heavier than stone. As you breathe now, imagine sitting on one of these islets, your feet dangling above the water, the tide flowing slowly beneath you. The walls rise around you, dark and steady, their shapes softened by moss and time. The lagoon reflects the sky, clouds drifting across its surface, the air warm and damp filled with the hum of insects and the distant call of birds. You feel no need to move, no need to think, no need to know. The city does not explain itself. It does not argue. It only rests. And in its resting, you too rest, your body steady as stone, your mind flowing as water, your breath carrying you deeper into calm. Nan Madol, like all lost civilizations, eventually emptied. The rulers fell, the rituals ended. The city was left to tide and time. Yet its stones remain, balanced, enduring, present. And in their presence, there is peace. For Nan Madol reminds us that even when life changes, when power fades, when empires dissolve, what remains is not always noise or ruin, but sometimes silence, sometimes water, sometimes rest. And tonight, as you drift into sleep, let Nan Madol float also in your mind, a city of stone and tide, where nothing hurries, where everything flows, where silence itself is the foundation, and where you too may rest, floating gently into dreams. Block 10, the Cloud People of the Andes. From the floating stones of Nan Madol, where water and basalt rest together in eternal calm, we drift now toward towering mountains, rising slowly, endlessly, their peaks hidden in veils of mist, their valleys carved by rivers that glisten like silver under the pale light of dawn. These are the Andes, a spine of stone stretching across South America. And within these heights lived a people known as the Chachapoyas, the Cloud People, so named because their homes clung to cliffs wrapped in fog, their cities rising above clouds, their presence hidden in the breath of mountains. To think of them now is to feel the stillness of mist itself, moving slowly, softly, covering and uncovering, revealing stone walls one moment and swallowing them the next. A rhythm as calming as breath itself. Imagine yourself climbing through dense forest, the ground damp with moss, the air cool and moist, until the trees part and you find stone walls rising around you, terraces built high upon cliffs, their edges softened by centuries of rain. This is Cuelap, the fortress of the Chachapoyas, a massive complex built on a mountain ridge, its walls rising 20 meters high, enclosing hundreds of circular houses, temples, plazas. From a distance, it looks like another mountain, a natural extension of the earth. But within its walls, life once flowed. People moving through narrow passageways, their homes lit with fire, their rituals echoing against stone. Now it is silent, embraced by vines and fog. But in that silence, the presence remains, steady and calm, reminding us that life, once lived, never fully disappears. The Chachapoyas were known not only for their cities, but for their way of honoring the dead. Along cliffs and caves, they placed sarcophagi shaped like human forms, tall and slender, painted with symbols, standing guard over valleys below. These figures, called Purunmachu, watch still, their eyes wide, their presence quiet, their silence deeper than words. To stand before them is to feel watched not with judgment, but with patience, as if the ancestors themselves remain nearby, steady and enduring, reminding us that we too are part of a longer story, one that stretches beyond our lives into mist and mountain. Picture the daily life of the Chachapoyas. Farmers tending terraces carved into steep slopes, their fields green with maize and potatoes. Weavers creating cloth dyed with colors drawn from plants and minerals. Children chasing one another through narrow streets of stone. Priests climbing to shrines where offerings of feathers and shells were laid before unseen gods. All of it now dissolved into time, but in imagination it returns, not loudly, not urgently, but softly. Like clouds drifting across peaks, their forms changing, their presence constant. When the Incas expanded, They came into conflict with the Chachapoyas, absorbing them into their empire. Yet even then, the cloud people maintained their distinct presence, their cities still clinging to cliffs, their sarcophagi still watching valleys. Later, when Spaniards arrived, they too encountered the Chachapoyas, and though disease and conquest scattered them, the silence of their mountains preserved their memory, hidden in fog, waiting to be found again. To uncover their ruins today is to uncover not only stones but atmosphere, not only walls but clouds, not only history but calm. As you breathe now, imagine standing atop the walls of Cuelap at dawn. The clouds below you shift and flow, covering valleys, revealing peaks, wrapping the world in softness. The air is cool, damp against your skin, the silence broken only by wind moving gently across stone. You feel not alone but embraced, not lost but sheltered, not ending but continuing. The cloud. People may be gone, but their presence lingers in mist, in cliffs, in sarcophagi that still stand against sky. Their silence is not emptiness but fullness, a fullness that steadies breath, eases thought, and invites rest. And tonight, as you close your eyes, let the Chachapoyas carry you upward, into clouds, into mist, into silence. Let their mountains be your resting place, their fog your blanket, their stones your anchor. For in the presence of the cloud people, there's no hurry, no noise, only the slow rhythm of mist, the endless patience of mountains, and the calm truth that everything rises, everything fades, and everything rests in silence. Block 11, the Labyrinth of the Minoans. From the misty peaks of the Andes, where the cloud people built their homes among the drifting fog, we drift eastward across oceans, carried softly on winds that rise and fall with the breath of the earth, until we arrive at another island, a place surrounded by blue water, warmed by the Mediterranean sun, where waves break gently against rocky shores. This is Crete, home of the Minoans, a people who flourished 4,000 years ago, long before Greece's classical age, long before Athens or Sparta, long before Homer sang of heroes and wars. They built palaces with winding corridors, painted walls with dolphins and lilies, crafted delicate jewelry and ceramics, and filled their lives with ritual and festival. To think of them now is to step into a labyrinth of beauty, a labyrinth that calms rather than confuses, where each turn brings not fear but stillness, not monsters but patterns, not threats but colors. Imagine entering the palace of Knossos, its walls rising in tears, its staircases winding up and down, its corridors branching, its rooms filled with light that filters through open courtyards. The walls are painted with frescoes, bright red, deep blue, soft gold, showing dolphins leaping in water, lilies swaying in fields, young men and women vaulting over bulls in ritual games. The images are alive, but their energy does not disturb. It soothes, for even in their motion there is grace. In their colors there is balance, in their rhythm there is calm. To walk through Knossos in imagination is to walk not into noise, but into a dream where art is everywhere, where life and beauty are the same, where even the labyrinth itself is not a prison but a pattern, a meditation in stone. The Minoans were masters of the sea. Their ships sailed the Aegean, carrying trade to Egypt and the Levant, bringing tin and copper, gold and ivory, ideas and stories. They left behind no tales of war or conquest, but of exchange, of flow, of connection. Their civilization was one of openness, and perhaps that is why their art feels alive even now, because it was never closed, never harsh, but always moving, always breathing. Imagine standing on a Cretan shore, the sea stretching before you, the horizon endless, the sound of waves steady, the air scented with salt and herbs. A Minoan ship drifts out, its sails white, its hull creaking gently, its crew moving in rhythm with tide. It is not a scene of urgency but of continuity, not of noise but of calm. The myth of the Minotaur, told centuries later by Greeks, may have roots in this labyrinth of Knossos. A creature half man, half bull, wandering endless corridors, a symbol of fear, of confusion, of entrapment. But perhaps the truth was different. Perhaps the labyrinth was not a place of fear, but of ritual. Not a prison, but a palace. Not chaos, but order. And perhaps the bull was not a monster, but a sacred animal, honored in festivals where young acrobats vaulted over its horns in graceful arcs, their bodies twisting in mid-air, their landings light as feathers. Imagine watching them now, their movements fluid, their rhythm soft, their courage not violent but balanced. Even in myth, if we look gently, we can find calm. For the labyrinth need not be a trap. It can be a meditation, a pattern without end, a reminder that life's paths are many and all lead to stillness. The Minoans left behind writing, Linear A still undeciphered, and Linear B later adopted by Mycenaeans. Yet their voices, like those of the Etruscans, remain largely unread, their words silent. Their palaces, too, eventually fell, perhaps from earthquakes, perhaps from eruptions, perhaps from invasions. Whatever the cause, their civilization ended, their art buried, their labyrinth quiet. But even in ruin, the presence remains. To walk among their stones today is to feel beauty still humming, art still alive, silence still full. As you breathe now, imagine yourself lying in a courtyard of Knossos at twilight. The frescoes glow faintly in fading light. The air is warm, scented with herbs and flowers. The sound of waves drifts in from the shore. You close your eyes, and you feel the labyrinth around you, not as confusion but as embrace, its passages folding around you like arms, its walls steady, its silence endless. You are not lost. You are sheltered. You are not trapped. You are held. The Minoans may have vanished, but their labyrinth still calms. Their art still soothes. Their silence still invites. And tonight, as you drift into sleep, let the Minoans guide you into their labyrinth, not of fear, but of rest. Not of monsters, but of dreams. Not of confusion, but of calm. For in their world, beauty and life were one. And in their silence, you too may find peace. Block 12, the Forgotten Empire of the Hittites. From the labyrinth of Knossos, where dolphins swam across painted walls and courtyards glowed with Mediterranean light, we drift inland, carried softly by the memory of waves until the sea fades behind us and we enter the wide highlands of Anatolia. Here, where the land rises into plateaus and the air carries the scent of pine and dust, a great empire once stood, powerful and organized, ruling armies, forging treaties, speaking with kings of Egypt, shaping history. And yet, for centuries, it was forgotten, erased from memory, its name vanishing into silence until archaeologists uncovered it again. This was the empire of the Hittites, a people who built their capital at Hattusa, who carved lions into gates, who left treaties on clay tablets, who rose to power and then dissolved into shadow. To think of them now is to feel the weight of time's erasure, and in that weight, a deep calm, for even the greatest empires eventually rest in silence. Imagine walking into Hattusa, the capital of the Hittites, as it must have appeared 3,000 years ago. The city stretched across hills, its walls winding like a serpent, its gates guarded by lions and sphinxes carved into stone. Temples stood with courtyards and columns. Palaces rose with storerooms filled with tablets, and the streets were alive with the movement of soldiers, priests, scribes, merchants. Yet today, all that remains are ruins. Walls crumbling, foundations faint, carvings worn by time. The silence of Hattusa is complete, but in that silence, presence lingers. The lions still stare with patient eyes, their mouths closed, their bodies steady, as if guarding not power but stillness, as if watching over centuries of quiet. The Hittites were among the first to use iron, shaping tools and weapons that gave them strength. They wrote in cuneiform on clay tablets, recording laws, treaties, rituals, myths. One of the oldest known peace treaties, between the Hittites and Egyptians after the Battle of Kadesh, bears their mark. And yet, for all their power, their empire eventually collapsed, dissolved by invasions, by internal struggles, by time itself. For centuries afterward, their name disappeared, their memory erased, until scholars in the 19th century, reading inscriptions carved into stone, rediscovered them. It was as if a voice long silent began to hum again, not loudly but softly, like a note returning after centuries of pause. Picture the daily life of the Hittites, scribes pressing symbols into wet clay with wooden styluses, their hands steady, their minds focused, priests pouring libations at temple altars, the scent of burning offerings rising into the air, soldiers polishing iron blades, their reflections glinting in firelight, children playing in courtyards, their laughter echoing briefly before fading into centuries of silence. All of this, once ordinary, is gone now. Yet in imagining it, you bring it gently back, not to awaken but to soothe. For to think of lives lived long ago is to feel the continuity of humanity, and in that continuity, peace. The Hittites also told myths, stories of gods and struggles, of storms and seasons, of creation and renewal. Their myths, though fragmented, remind us that even then, people sought meaning in cycles, sought comfort in stories, sought rest in the thought that life repeats itself. To listen to their myths now, even in fragments, is to feel the hum of time, the rhythm of repetition, the calm of knowing that the questions we ask today are the same asked thousands of years ago, and that in those questions lies not confusion but unity. As you breathe slowly now, imagine yourself walking through the ruins of Hattusa at dusk. The air cools, the stones glow faintly in fading light, the silence deepens. You pass through the lion gate, its carved guardians steady, their eyes calm. You walk along walls that once enclosed kings and armies, now covered with grass and wind. You sit upon a stone, the sky wide above, the earth firm below, and you feel the presence of an empire that once was, now gone, now resting. You feel not loss but relief, for the silence of Hattusa is not emptiness but rest, not absence but presence, not ending but continuation in stillness. And tonight, as you drift into sleep, let the Hittites remind you that even the greatest powers eventually soften, even the loudest voices eventually quiet, even the strongest empires eventually rest. Their gates still stand, their lions still watch, their silence still endures. And in that silence, you too may find calm, you too may rest, you too may sleep. Block 13, the Silent Watchers of Rapa Nui. From the gates of Hattusa, where lions carved in stone gaze patiently over centuries of silence, we drift once more across vast distances, carried now by the endless blue of the Pacific. The ocean stretches in every direction, calm and boundless, its waves repeating softly, endlessly like the rhythm of breathing. And in the middle of this ocean, isolated, far from continents, rises a small island, a fragment of volcanic earth surrounded by waves, a place known today as Easter Island, but to its people as Rapa Nui. Here, the silence is kept not only by earth and sea, but by giants of stone, the Moai, faces carved and raised, watching over the island with calm eyes, their presence steady, their silence deeper than words. Imagine approaching Rapa Nui at dawn, the sea glowing silver under the rising sun, cliffs black and steep against the light. As you step ashore, the wind carries the scent of salt and grass, and scattered across fields and slopes are figures larger than life. Moai standing tall, their features serene, their bodies half buried, their gazes fixed upon the horizon or inland. Each Moai is carved from volcanic rock, shaped by hands that chipped patiently, slowly, until faces emerged, broad noses, heavy brows, lips pressed in quiet strength. To stand before one is to feel not fear but calm, not dominance but steadiness, not judgment but companionship. They are not loud monuments. They are silent presences, guardians of stillness. The people of Rapa Nui carved hundreds of these statues, some weighing many tons, transporting them across the island to their platforms, Ahu, near the shore. How they moved them remains a question. Some say they used logs, others say ropes and careful balance. Others believe they walked the statues by rocking them gently forward. The truth may be lost, but the presence remains. And in that mystery there is calm, for it reminds us that not everything needs solving. Not every question needs an answer. Sometimes the unknown itself is soothing, like the sea that has no end, like the horizon that always recedes. Picture the island alive centuries ago, families tending gardens of sweet potatoes and taro, fishermen casting nets into waves, priests chanting before Ahu, fires flickering against the night, shadows of Moai stretching long across the land. The air filled with music of drums and songs, the smell of earth and smoke mingling, the community alive beneath the steady watch of stone guardians. And yet today, all of that is gone. The songs have faded, the fires have cooled, but the Moai remain still watching, still waiting, still silent. Legends say the statues hold mana, spiritual power protecting clans, embodying ancestors. Their eyes, once inlaid with coral, would have gleamed in the sun, their gaze alive with presence. To imagine that gaze now is to feel not threatened but embraced, as if the ancestors themselves were still here, steady, enduring, patient. The Moai do not speak, but in their silence they say more than words ever could. That life passes, that memory endures, that presence is enough. As you breathe slowly now, imagine sitting on the grass at twilight, the ocean whispering against the shore, the sky glowing with stars brighter than any you have ever seen. A row of Moai stands before you, their backs to the sea, their faces toward the land. They do not move, they do not speak, but their presence is constant, their silence deep. You sit in their company, and you feel your body grow heavy, your thoughts dissolve, your breath steady. The Moai stand, and you rest. Rapa Nui itself faced struggles, its forests cut, its resources strained, its people enduring hardship. Yet even in hardship, they created, they carved, they raised monuments that still stand, monuments not of noise but of silence, not of power but of patience. Their civilization changed, declined, transformed, but the Moai remain, steady as the ocean, calm as the stars, present as the earth. And tonight, as you drift into sleep, let the Moai stand also in your mind, their faces calm, their presence steady, their silence endless. Let them watch over you as they watch over their island, guardians not of fear, but of rest, companions not of words, but of silence. For in their stillness there is peace, and in their silence there is sleep.
Block 14, The Silent Hearths of Cradle. From the lonely moe of Rapa Nui, standing in eternal stillness over the waves of the Pacific, we drift back in time further and further, carried not by ships but by memory itself, until we arrive at one of the very first places where people chose to live together. Not as scattered families, but as a community, a city without streets, a city of rooftops, a city where life was shared in every breath. This is Cradle in the heart of Anatolia, built over 9,000 years ago, a settlement older than most stories. Older than pyramids, older than kings, older even than the idea of writing. Here, in small houses pressed close together, people created the first fabric of urban life, weaving silence into walls of mud brick, painting dreams onto plaster, honoring life and death with equal care. Imagine walking through Cradle, but there are no streets to guide you. Instead, houses press against one another, walls joined, doors absent. To enter, you climb a ladder and pass through the roof, stepping down into a single room that serves as hearth, home, and heart. The floor is smooth, the walls painted, the air filled with the scent of smoke from a central fire. Around the edges of the room are raised platforms where people sleep, eat, rest. Beneath some of these platforms, buried in the earth, are the remains of ancestors, their presence not distant but within the home itself, reminding the living that death is not separation but continuity. The silence of these rooms is deep, but not empty. It hums with generations, with breath upon breath, with the soft rhythm of fire and life. On the walls, paintings tell stories, hunters chasing wild animals, women giving form to goddesses, vultures hovering over bodies, symbols whose meanings blur but whose presence still moves us. To stand before them, even in imagination, is to feel the first stirrings of art, of myth, of ritual, painted not to impress but to connect, not to declare but to remind. These are not loud images. They are quiet meditations, whispers of meaning that pass from hand to wall, from wall to memory, from memory to us. Daily life in Cradle was simple, yet profound. People farmed wheat and barley, tended sheep and goats, shaped obsidian into tools and ornaments, crafted figurines of clay. They lived close, side by side, their lives intertwined. Imagine climbing from roof to roof, the sun warming clay beneath your feet, voices rising softly from open doors, the smell of bread baking, the laughter of children echoing, the murmur of conversation flowing like water. There are no wide avenues, no towering temples, no palaces or kings. Instead, there is community, closeness, balance, and in that balance there is rest. The people of Catalyok honored life and death equally. Burials beneath floors kept the departed within the circle of the living, while figurines of goddesses, carved with care, suggest reverence for fertility, for cycles, for renewal. In one famous figurine, a seated woman rests between two leopards, her form full, her face calm, her presence powerful yet gentle. To see her is to feel not fear but reassurance, not dominance but continuity, not command but comfort. She is a mother not of power but of patience, and in her silence we find peace. As centuries passed, the city grew layer upon layer. Houses built upon older houses, walls rising over walls, generations living above generations, the settlement slowly becoming a mound of memory, a tell that preserved life within earth. To walk across Kaitalyak today is to walk across time itself, each step pressing upon lives lived thousands of years ago. The silence of the mound is steady, vast, deep, a silence not of absence, but of fullness, a silence that contains the hum of countless hearts, countless breaths, countless dreams. As you breathe slowly now, imagine sitting inside one of those houses at dusk. The fire in the hearth flickers, shadows dance across painted walls. The air is warm with smoke and earth. Around you, family rests, voices quiet, the day fading into sleep. Beneath the floor, ancestors rest too, their presence felt, their silence steady. You feel not alone, but surrounded, not lost, but connected, not ending, but continuing. The fire warms you, the walls embrace you, the silence steadies you. Catalyok is a reminder that civilization does not begin with noise, but with closeness, not with kings, but with community, not with conquest, but with hearths. Its silence is not emptiness, but fullness, not loneliness, but togetherness. And tonight, as you close your eyes, let Catalyok be your resting place. Let its rooftops be your path, its hearth your warmth, its silence your blanket. For in the presence of one of the first cities, you too may rest, steady and calm, part of the long breath of humanity that began not with shouts but with whispers, not with power but with peace.
Block 15, the obelisks of Aksum. From the rooftops of Çatalhöyük, where the first hearths glowed with smoke and warmth, we drift once more across the wide expanse of time, carried slowly toward the highlands of Africa, where mountains rise against blue skies and valleys stretch green with fields and forests. Here, where the air is thin and the sun shines bright upon stone, there once stood a great empire, powerful and prosperous, a kingdom that traded with Rome, with India, with Arabia, a civilization whose kings carved their memory not in walls or palaces, but in tall obelisks of stone, rising slender and serene toward the sky. This was Aksum, the empire of the Horn of Africa, a realm that flourished nearly 2,000 years ago, leaving behind silence carved into monoliths, whispers etched into stone, echoes of faith that still linger in the cool air of Ethiopia. Imagine standing in the city of Aksum at dawn, the light of the sun striking tall stelae, their shadows stretching across the ground. Some are plain, others are carved with patterns that resemble windows and doors, like stone towers frozen in place, reaching upward, pointing toward heaven. The tallest once stood over 30 meters high, its presence steady, its silence deep. These monuments marked graves, honored the dead, perhaps symbolized gateways between worlds. To walk among them is to feel both small and steady, for the obelisks are not loud but calm, not aggressive but patient, not harsh but serene. The people of Aksum were traders, their caravans moving across deserts with ivory, gold, frankincense, their ships sailing the Red Sea, connecting Africa with distant lands. Imagine the harbor at Adulis alive with sails, the smell of spices and salt filling the air, merchants speaking in many tongues, goods flowing from shore to shore. Yet above this bustle of trade, Aksum's kings built their stelae, rising silently, reminding all that wealth fades, but stone remains, reminding all that beneath the movement of trade lies the stillness of memory. Aksum was also a kingdom of faith. In the 4th century, its king Ezana embraced Christianity, making Aksum one of the earliest Christian states in the world. Churches rose upon hills, crosses were carved into stone, prayers were whispered in Ge'ez, a language still sung in Ethiopian liturgies today. Imagine the sound of those prayers drifting across valleys, soft, steady, blending with the wind through grass and the call of birds. Faith gave Aksum a new presence, one that endures even now, one that turned silence into sacredness. Daily life in Aksum was filled with rhythm. Farmers tending terraced fields, their hands in soil, herders guiding cattle across slopes, potters shaping clay, their wheels spinning slowly, children playing in courtyards, their laughter rising and falling with the breeze. All of this unfolded beneath the gaze of obelisks, beneath the calm presence of stone guardians that outlasted centuries. To imagine this life is to feel not distance but closeness, for their rhythms were not so different from ours. Work, rest, family, faith. And in that closeness there is calm, for we see ourselves in them, and in seeing, we rest. But like all empires, Aksum declined. Trade shifted, soils tired, climate changed, powers moved. The city grew quiet, its markets emptied, its ships docked no more. The obelisks, however, remained, their silence steady, their shadows long, their presence undisturbed. Even as centuries passed, even as the world forgot their name, they stood, stone against sky, whispering eternity. To walk among them today is to feel time itself pause, to feel silence expand, to feel rest. As you breathe slowly now, imagine yourself sitting at the base of one of these great obelisks. The stone rises above you, tall and slender, its surface cool against your hand, its shadow falling long across the ground. The air is still, the sky endless, the silence deep. You close your eyes and you feel not alone but accompanied, not small but steady, not ending but continuing. The obelisk is your companion, its stillness your anchor, its silence your rest. Aksum reminds us that civilizations need not vanish completely. They linger in stone, in faith, in whispers. Their obelisks are not ruins but presences, not fragments but companions. And tonight, as you drift into sleep, let Aksum's silence rise within you like a stone tower, steady and calm, pointing upward into dreams, reminding you that even as centuries pass, presence remains, silence endures, and rest is eternal. Block 16, the mountain city of the Zapotecs, from the obelisks of Aksum, rising slender and serene against the Ethiopian sky. We drift westward once more, carried over seas and forests until we find ourselves among the mountains of southern Mexico, where ridges rise gently against the horizon and valleys stretch green and fertile. Here, on a mountaintop carved flat by human hands, the Zapotecs built their sacred city, Monte Alban, a place of plazas and pyramids, of temples and tombs, of silence and stone. For over 1,000 years, this city looked down upon valleys below, its presence steady, its silence profound. To think of it now is to feel the calm of mountains themselves, the slow rhythm of stone resting beneath the sky. Imagine climbing the mountain path at dawn, the air cool, the ground soft with earth and grass. As you reach the summit, the world opens around you, the valley stretching wide, the city of Monte Alban unfolding, broad plazas empty now, pyramids rising with gentle slopes, stairways leading upward, temples resting in silence. The stone glows with the first light of day, gold and soft, shadows long, the air thin and clear. You stand in the center of the plaza, and all around you the city is quiet, not abandoned but resting, not gone but enduring. Its silence is steady, its presence calm. The Zapotecs were builders, astronomers, artists and priests. They carved stone panels with glyphs, an early writing system still partly undeciphered. They built tombs beneath their temples, painting walls with figures and colors that spoke of gods and ancestors, of life and death intertwined. They observed the heavens, aligning their buildings with the movements of the sun and stars, turning their city into a calendar of stone. Imagine standing atop a pyramid at night, the stars burning sharp above, the air still, the silence deep. The city itself becomes an observatory, the sky a book, the stars words written across eternity. Life in Monte Alban was full of rhythm, farmers tending maize and beans in the valley below, their crops green against the soil, artisans shaping pottery and jewelry, their hands steady, their eyes focused, children running across plazas, their laughter echoing against stone, priests chanting in temples, their voices rising slowly into air. All of this unfolded beneath mountains steady and sky endless, and even now, though the voices are gone, the rhythm remains, humming softly in the silence. The city stood for centuries, but like all, it declined. Trade shifted, power moved, new peoples rose, and Monte Alban slowly emptied. Its plazas grew quiet, its temples rested, its tombs closed. For centuries it slept beneath the sky, its silence broken only by wind and rain, by birds and insects, by the slow breath of mountains. And yet its presence never faded. To walk there today is to feel its calm still alive, its silence still steady, its mountains still watching. As you breathe slowly now, imagine yourself lying in the plaza at twilight. The pyramids rise around you, their outlines dark against the sky. The air cools, the stars begin to appear, the silence deepens. You close your eyes, and you feel not alone but embraced, not small but steady, not ending but continuing. The city holds you, the mountains surround you, the silence steadies you. Monte Alban is a reminder that civilizations do not vanish completely. They linger in stone, in mountain, in silence. Their plazas are not empty but full of memory, their temples not abandoned but resting. And tonight, as you drift into sleep, let Monte Alban rise also in your mind, a mountain city of calm, a place where silence is sacred, where stone is patient, where rest is eternal. Block 17, the desert circles of Nabta Playa, from the mountain city of Monte Alban, where temples rest upon ridges and plazas open toward the sky. We drift once more across time and distance, carried gently to the sands of the Sahara, where the desert stretches wide, its dunes glowing gold in daylight, silver in moonlight, endless in their rhythm. Here, far from rivers and seas, In a land that seems empty and silent, people once gathered thousands of years before the pyramids to raise stones in circles, to align them with the sun and stars, to mark the passage of seasons. This place is Nabta Playa, a forgotten circle of stones in southern Egypt, a megalithic site older than Stonehenge, where desert and sky met in harmony, where silence became sacred geometry, where human hands shaped markers not for power but for rhythm, not for conquest but for time. Imagine the desert at dawn, the air cool before the heat, the horizon endless, the sand glowing faint pink under the rising sun. In the middle of this vastness, stones stand, some upright, some aligned, forming circles and lines that point toward the summer solstice. They are not tall, not massive like pyramids, but steady, quiet, patient. To walk among them is to feel the desert breathe, to feel the sky descend, to feel the silence expand. Each stone carries not weight but rhythm, each placement not command but harmony. They are reminders that even in the harshest places, humans sought order, sought connection, sought calm in the cycles of sun and star. Picture the people of Nabta Playa, nomads and herders who lived in a desert that was once greener, with seasonal lakes and grasses where cattle grazed. They gathered here, perhaps for ritual, perhaps for community, perhaps to mark the return of rains. They carved basins into stone, arranged megaliths into patterns, aligned them with the heavens. At night, under skies filled with stars brighter than we can see today, they watched Orion rise. They traced the Milky Way across the darkness. They felt the universe itself moving in rhythm with their lives. Imagine lying on sand beside those stones, the air cool, the sky vast, the silence complete, your breath joining the rhythm of the cosmos. Nabta Playa is older than Egypt's pyramids, older than the temples along the Nile, yet it is less known, less spoken of, its stones smaller, its presence quieter. But in that quiet lies its strength, for here we see that the desire to connect with the heavens, to align earth with sky, to find peace in patterns, is as old as humanity itself. And in recognizing that, we find calm, for it reminds us that we are part of a long rhythm, a rhythm that stretches back through millennia, a rhythm that continues even now. As centuries passed, the desert grew harsher, the lakes dried, the people moved on. Nabta Playa was abandoned, its stones left to sun and sand, its silence deepening. Yet the stones remain, steady against wind, patient against time, whispering across thousands of years. To stand among them today is to feel not emptiness but presence, not absence but endurance, not loss but calm. As you breathe slowly now, imagine yourself sitting within the stone circle at twilight. The air is cool, the desert quiet, the sky burning with stars. The stones around you are dark against the sand, their shapes simple, their presence steady. You close your eyes and you feel the rhythm of the heavens above, the rhythm of your own breath within, the rhythm of silence itself. Nabta Playa is not loud, not grand, but it is eternal. And in its eternity, we find rest. And tonight, as you drift into sleep, let Nabta Playa be your resting place. Let its stones be your companions, its desert your blanket, its sky your guide. For in the circles of silence carved in sand, you too may find calm. You too may find stillness. You too may rest. Block 18, The Vanished Wealth of Tartessos. From the quiet circles of Nabta Playa, where stones align with stars in the silence of the desert, we drift westward again, crossing mountains and seas until we reach the far edge of Europe, where the land of the Iberian Peninsula meets the Atlantic, where rivers widen into estuaries and salt winds sweep across marshes. Here, in a place where sunlight glitters on water and earth is rich with metals, there was once spoken a name that stirred the imagination of Greeks and Romans alike. A kingdom of wealth and mystery, Tartessos. It was said to be filled with silver and gold, its rivers flowing not only with water but with treasures, its rulers powerful, its people prosperous. And yet, like so many others, it vanished, leaving only whispers, only fragments, only silence. Imagine yourself at the mouth of the Guadalquivir River, where it meets the sea. The tide rolls in and out, slow and steady. Birds wheel above, reeds bend in the wind. Long ago, ships may have sailed here, their hulls filled with ore, their sails catching sunlight. Traders spoke of Tartessos as a land of riches, where metals gleamed, where palaces shone, where music and poetry filled the air. The Greek historian Herodotus wrote of it, telling of a king named Argantonio, who ruled for 80 years and welcomed travelers with generosity. And yet beyond these tales, Tartessos remains elusive, as if the earth itself swallowed it, as if time itself erased it, leaving only legend behind. Archaeologists search the marshes and plains for signs, for walls, for artifacts, for voices. They find traces of cultures, Phoenician colonies, Iberian settlements. But Tartessos itself remains uncertain, hovering between myth and reality. Perhaps it was a city, perhaps a region, perhaps only a story told by sailors. Yet its presence in imagination is strong, a kingdom glowing in silence, a treasure that cannot be touched, only dreamed. And in dreaming we find rest. For the thought of a land of wealth that disappears reminds us that nothing material lasts, that all treasures fade, that what remains is not gold but silence. Picture Tartessos as legend paints it, a city of shining walls, markets filled with silver vessels, music drifting from halls, voices reciting poetry under starlight. Its people walked along riverbanks lined with reeds, their reflections glowing in water, their lives filled with abundance. And then, slowly or suddenly, it was gone. Was it destroyed by flood, swallowed by marshes, absorbed by other peoples? We do not know. What we do know is that its name lingers, its silence hums, its absence calms. As you breathe slowly now, imagine sitting by the river at twilight, the water moving softly, the air cool, the sky glowing with the last light of day. You hear only the rustle of reeds, the call of birds, the steady lap of waves. There are no ships now, no palaces, no markets, only silence. But in that silence, Tartessos still lives, not as a place of wealth, but as a presence of calm, not as a city of riches, but as a whisper of impermanence, reminding us that all kingdoms pass, all treasures fade, and only silence endures. And tonight, as you drift deeper into rest, let Tartessos be your companion. Let its vanished wealth remind you that you need not hold on to anything tightly, that you can release, that you can let go. For in letting go, there is calm, and in calm, there is sleep. Block 19, the cliff dwellings of the ancestral Puebloans. From the vanished wealth of Tartessos, hidden in the marshes of Iberia, we drift gently across the Atlantic once more, carried by winds and waters toward a vast land of mesas and deserts, where red rock glows beneath the sun and canyons cut deep into earth. Here, in the silence of the American Southwest, the ancestral Puebloans, sometimes called the Anasazi, built their homes not only on open plains, but within cliffs themselves, carving and constructing dwellings that cling to canyon walls, hidden in shadows sheltered beneath stone. Their presence remains in places like Mesa Verde and Chaco Canyon, where rooms of stone still line cliffs, where kivas, circular chambers for ritual, still open into sky, where silence hums with memory, Imagine standing at the edge of a canyon at twilight, the sky glowing red and gold, the air cooling after a long day of heat. Across the cliff face you see small windows and walls, whole villages tucked into alcoves, their stone blending with stone, their presence subtle, almost invisible until you notice them. You descend slowly, carefully, and step into one of these dwellings. The walls are cool, the air still, the rooms small but steady. You touch the stone, and you feel the work of hands that shaped each block, that carried wood for beams, that built homes strong enough to endure centuries. The silence here is not emptiness, but companionship, as if the people have only stepped away for a moment and may return at any time. The ancestral Puebloans lived with rhythm, guided by seasons, by rain, by sun. They farmed maize, beans, and squash in dry soil, building canals and systems to catch precious water. They watched the skies, building structures aligned with solstices and equinoxes, marking the rhythm of time with stone. Imagine sitting within a kiva as dawn breaks, the circular chamber cool, the roof opening to sky, the first light streaming downward, striking stone precisely, a silent reminder that life flows with the heavens. These were not people separate from their land, but people woven into it, their homes extensions of cliffs, their rituals echoes of stars. Daily life was filled with quiet tasks, grinding maize into flour with stone tools, shaping clay into pots, weaving fibers into cloth, tending fires, telling stories by flame. Children played in plazas, their laughter carrying softly across stone. Elders sat in shade, their voices recounting myths of creation, of journeys, of spirits dwelling in mountains and rivers. The silence of the canyon amplified every sound, every word, every song, until even whispers seemed eternal. And now, though those voices have faded, their presence lingers steady as the stone itself. By the 13th century, many of these cliff dwellings were abandoned. Why remains uncertain. Drought, resource strain, social change, all may have played a part. Yet their leaving was not collapse, but transition. Descendants of the ancestral Puebloans live still among the Hopi, the Zuni, and other Pueblo peoples, carrying traditions forward, their presence enduring. The cliffs grew quiet, the rooms emptied, but silence itself became their companion, and that silence remains today. As you breathe slowly now, imagine sitting within one of those cliff dwellings at night. The stars above burn brighter than anywhere else, the canyon air cool and clear, the walls around you firm and steady. The fire has died, the rooms are dark, the silence deep. You close your eyes and you feel the weight of stone above you, the steadiness of cliff around you, the vastness of sky beyond you. You are not alone. You are part of something enduring, something that rests, something that waits in silence. The ancestral Puebloans remind us that home is not only walls but harmony with place, that civilization is not noise but rhythm, that silence itself is shelter. And tonight, as you drift into dreams, let their cliffs be your resting place, their stone your anchor, their silence your comfort. For in the dwellings of the canyons, as in your own breath, rest is eternal, steady, calm, and endless. Block 20, the eternal silence of lost civilizations. From the cliff dwellings of the ancestral Puebloans, where stone shelters cling to canyons and stars burn brighter than memory itself, we drift now into the final stretch of our journey, the place where all these stories meet, not in noise, not in answers, but in silence. We have walked through Atlantis, the dream beneath the sea, through Lemuria and Mu, the continents that may never have been but still live in imagination. We have stood before the colossal heads of the Olmecs, carved with patience into stone, and wandered through Göbekli Tepe, where pillars older than history hum with presence. We have entered Petra with its rose cliffs glowing in candlelight, walked through the ordered streets of Mohenjo-Daro, sat among the tombs of the Etruscans where life and death intertwine. We have climbed the mounds of Cahokia, drifted through the canals of Nan Madol, stood among the mists of the cloud people of the Andes. We have lost ourselves in the labyrinth of the Minoans, passed through the lion gates of the Hittites, gazed upon the Moai of Rapa Nui. We have descended into the hearths of Çatalhöyük, stood beneath the obelisks of Aksum, walked the plazas of Monte Alban, circled the stones of Nabta Playa, and listened to the vanished whispers of Tartessos. Each one has spoken, not with words, but with silence, not with noise, but with presence. And now, as these memories flow together, you may feel yourself drifting too, your own thoughts fading, your body softening, your breath steady. The lost civilizations remind us that everything passes. Cities rise and fall, languages are spoken and forgotten, monuments are built and worn. But in their passing there is no chaos, only rhythm, only repetition, only rest. The ruins they leave behind are not cries but sighs, not shouts but whispers, not endings but reminders. To walk among them, even in imagination, is to walk in silence, and in that silence we find calm. Imagine now that you are lying beneath a vast sky that holds all these places at once. Around you are the colossal heads of the Olmecs, the pillars of Göbekli Tepe, the facades of Petra, the mounds of Cahokia, the canals of Nan Madol, the clouds of the Chachapoyas, the frescoes of Knossos, the lions of Hattusa, the Moai of Rapa Nui, the hearths of Çatalhöyük, the obelisks of Aksum, the plazas of Monte Alban, the stones of Nabta Playa, the whispers of Tartessos, the cliffs of Mesa Verde. They do not compete, they do not overwhelm, they simply rest together, steady, patient, eternal. You lie among them, part of them, your own breath blending with theirs, your own silence joining their silence, your own rest joining their rest. The civilizations are lost, yet they are not gone. They live in earth, in stone, in memory, in dream. They live in you as you listen, as you imagine, as you drift. They remind you that life is brief, but presence is eternal, that noise fades, but silence endures, that even when everything seems to vanish, what remains is calm. And so as you close your eyes, let this journey become your rest. Let Atlantis sink softly into your dreams. Let Petra's rose stone glow faintly in your memory. Let Cahokia's grassy mounds rise gently beneath you. Let Nan Madol's waters flow around you. Let the Moai of Rapa Nui watch over you. Let the labyrinths, the tombs, the obelisks, the plazas, the stones all merge into one vast silence that carries you into sleep. Before you drift fully, know that you can return to this journey whenever you wish, that you can walk again among these forgotten worlds, that you can rest again in their eternal silence. And if you wish to keep wandering with us, softly, gently, into other stories of time and memory, you may press like, you may leave a comment with your own thoughts, you may subscribe so that each journey returns to you. You may share so that others too may rest here. Think of it not as a command, but as an invitation, a gentle whisper carried on wind, an open door into silence. And now, let go. Let your breath lengthen. Let your body soften. Let your thoughts dissolve. The civilizations have rested for centuries. You may rest for one night. Their silence is eternal. Your sleep will be deep. Close your eyes and drift, steady and calm, into the endless quiet of lost civilizations.